Welcome back to another episode of What Are We Drinking? Today we have the amazing Michael Graves, CEO of Visual Care. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much for having me, Rachel.
We're very excited. So do you want to just give us a little bit of insight into your background, where you've come from, what you're currently doing, and then I'm going to hit you up about all things Visual Care.
Yeah, excellent. So in terms of all things Visual Care and NDIS, I'm recent to this role. So I was recently appointed CEO of Visual Care in January of this year. I have some experience in the home care market, but broadly I'm new to the market. So there might be some questions I may or may not have answers to. And I'm learning, I guess is the point. And I think that's probably perhaps a bit cliche, but how I think about my whole career. I like to say to certain people that I started off my life as I started my life as a lawyer, and then I worked in finance. Mm-hmm. And since then I've been trying to beg forgiveness by making better decisions. So I did work in private equity in Sydney for a while, and then left a little bit why. I'd kind of established this, what I consider to be like amazing skill set. I've been exposed to a lot of different environments. We were joking before about boardrooms, spent a lot of time in the boardroom. And but the one thing I hadn't done was actually built a team. I fancied myself as being able to do that. But I really wanted an experience to do that. So I left, actually moved back to Brisbane, which is where I grew up. And
you won't hold it against you.
Yes, no, well, we'll get to footy later. Moved back to Brisbane and was fortunate to be appointed to run a footwear startup, business called Frankie 4, which when I started, they used to refer to themselves as a comfort brand. And I said, no, we've got to stop saying comfort. We're a functional footwear brand. And then from there moved.
So like old wear?
No, so basically, well, yeah, so that's like when you say comfort.
Like the manners?
Yeah. No, so it is, so basically it was founded by a lady who is a podiatrist and a physiotherapist. Mm-hmm. And essentially she became very passionate and about the fact that when people came to her to, seek advice or feedback, or they had foot pain, that what she would advise them to wear would be, yes, some of the older brands that you probably would prefer not to wear, Rachel, given the shoes you're wearing, I see. But there wasn't an option in the market for people. And, the part that I didn't realize is, and I've been fortunate enough, I hadn't experienced, foot or ankle pain. It has a instantly debilitating impact on one's life. And then there's also, to go with that, people want to make sure they have choice. There's a lot, with the rise of diabetes, also with pregnancy, there's a lot of changes that happen to people's feet, and people should still have the choice to look and feel confident about what the choices they make. So I didn't realize that at the time. I found it was an amazing business. It's done very well. But for me, I guess one of the key takeaways was the amount of customers who would just say, you have no idea how you've changed my life because I have that confidence to get out and do things. And that was unexpected, but really motivating.
How amazing.
Yeah. So I was there for a few years, and then private equity seemed to follow me. So that was bought by a private equity fund. And then I was appointed to a similar role at Origo Education, which was a educational technology business. We created, well, it still does create math and STEM resources for kind of kinder through grade 6.
Okay.
And Australia talks a lot about the export of education. We genuinely exported education, but education IP. Mm-hmm. And the US was our biggest market. But yeah, no, I love that. I've got 4 kids. And it was timely because, they're all at school, and I was understanding a lot about the curriculum, about how they learn and how that's changed significantly. And particularly the way maths is taught today is very different to, maybe I'm showing my age, but how I learned it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So then from there to Visual Care.
Okay. And then so we've gone from footwear to education into NDIS, all appointed from private equity as the CEO.
Broadly, yes. Yeah.
You must be a pretty good CEO.
Oh, I don't know. I'm not sure. Maybe.
Yeah,
I think
okay.
so.
All right. And
I'm learning.
You're learning. That's
Yeah.
good. Okay. And so what would say your experience in the NDIS sector has been thus far? Now, it's only been a few months, right?
It has been, yeah.
Okay. So big learnings, I would imagine.
Big learnings. And I'm probably at that point where I know enough to start to be a bit dangerous.
Already.
But yeah, well, but I think, look, I've loved it. A lot of what I've done over the last 3 months is get out and talk to customers, and been to a bunch of conferences and really just trying to understand what the need is. I think obviously it's complex, but I think that we have the choice as a software provider to either, reflect that complexity or to simplify it. And I think our job is to simplify it.
I love that so much. And so just for our audience, do you want to give us a 30-second elevator pitch on Visual Care?
Yeah, no. Okay. So Visual Care, I probably should have practiced this. So Visual Care is a care management platform. So we do work in NDIS. We also work in aged care.
Okay.
So, we support, from kind of the onboarding process through rostering, scheduling, and complaints, and through to payment as well.
Amazing. So this is called What Are We Drinking?
Yep.
So what are we drinking today?
So I'm drinking I think a double espresso.
A double espresso.
Yeah, which I learnt recently. Actually, in my previous role, I'd been at a coffee shop I used to go to at work every day.
Okay.
And it wasn't until I was about 2 or 3 years into it, the barista I got to know quite well said, you're either a psychopath or a CEO. And I was like, I'm sorry, excuse me? And I didn't realize. Apparently it's people who drink, that's often psychopaths or CEOs.
Okay.
Maybe we're one and the same.
Okay.
Drink double espressos. I'm not sure if you guys are aware of that, but that's what I was told. And since then,
Wow.
people have told me that. So,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Well, I'm hoping that you're not a psychopath.
Yeah.
A CEO I can manage. So I have to drink the same
you're
thing
drinking
as
the
you're
same.
drinking.
Right.
That's the concept. So I don't drink. I'm not a psychopath.
Okay.
So
How do you do you drink coffee?
I do.
Or how do you usually
I
drink
actually
coffee?
I have a piccolo.
Okay, so you're not too far off.
It
Yeah.
does sound strong, but I'm going to give it a
Yeah.
I'm going to give it a whirl.
Okay. Is this where we cheers?
Cheers. Oh,
It's bitter. Actually, and you've chosen a good brand.
terrible.
The All Press used to be when I lived in Sydney. I always look for All Press coffees. So thank you.
Oh my
It's
goodness.
responsible for that.
Wow, how many of these do you have a day?
It's probably a reflection of my day. Either 2, but sometimes 3.
Wow, that
Yeah.
is very bitter.
It is.
And so is that why you mix it with soda water?
I think soda water
Or
does
double
kind of
espresso with soda water.
no, I think the soda water. I'm a bit obsessed with sparkling water.
And so what would you say your drink says about you then?
I'm bitter. I'm not sure. No.
You're bitter.
Oh, that's a good question. I'm not sure. Well, I could say I'm a psychopath, as we've kind of touched on.
Okay.
I think I just like things in their purest form. Perhaps
Purest form.
Yeah.
Okay, we've taken it from one extreme to the other. We've gone from psychopath to this
Yeah.
gentle, natural
Mm.
avenue. I like it. Well, it's not my preference. I was hoping you were going to pick a margarita, but I will deal with the double espresso. I've had 2 coffees this morning, so I will likely be wired by the end of this conversation. So if I start
margarita
talking
later.
your margarita later, done. Okay, perfect. All right. So look, you've been in C-suite roles throughout your career, as I understand it. What would you say makes a great CEO?
Well, look, I'm definitely learning.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if I'm the right person to answer that question, but I think learning. I think listening. Listening to everyone, really. I try to listen more than I talk. I don't often achieve that, but yeah, listening and understanding, and then you can start to empower. I think also providing freedom. We have, I remember listening to a podcast a while ago, which was talking about comparing, it was like in a bigger business, trying to, I think it was get approval to, spend $5,000 or $10,000 versus going to the bank for a home loan where a bank will give you $1 million or $500,000, quite readily. And almost the process was the same. And I think that businesses, and understandably, there is some risk with providing the team the ability to the freedom to make choices, to make the right choices, but make the wrong choices. If you're always making the right choices, you're not learning.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's definitely something I kind of talk a lot with my kids about, which is, there's only one way to learn. That's getting things wrong.
Yes, perfect. So to recap that, it's around listening to others. It's around allowing people to make mistakes and get things wrong and giving them the freedom to do so.
Yeah.
I love that so much. I think that obviously, I think something that a lot of leaders miss is that ability to actively listen. They want to be the smartest person in the room when they don't even realize that that's probably the room that you'd least want to be in.
Yeah.
You want to be the dumbest person in the room.
Yeah, look, I think given I've, as you kind of articulated, jumped in different markets, there's no way I can be the most knowledgeable, and I don't want to be the most knowledgeable in the room. Like I've probably, that would be a failure on my behalf if that was the case.
Yeah.
So it means you do have to be humble around that.
And so what do you think then, if you've worked across different markets, but obviously in the same role, what do you think the skill set of somebody like that has to be able to move into a new industry, but have the same skills that are transferable? What do you think those critical skills are?
So I think I was probably fortunate in terms of having started in, I did do a stint in management consulting and finance where you get I guess exposure to a broad huge cross section of different industries and different businesses. You start to see some patterns. But in terms of the skill set, probably something which I knew I'd need, but I still to this day I'm surprised at how often I rely on and have to force myself to remember to communicate constantly. Sometimes in a really structured format, others in a more fluid manner, but just communicating. There's a lot of noise in the world in everyone's lives. And so to be able to actually, work out where we're going and communicate that consistently and clearly, I think that's something that I have to force myself to remember.
That is so special, right? Being able to communicate with everyone of different walks of life. Yeah. And it's something that they're probably not teaching in school. You mentioned you got 4 kids.
I do.
How do you teach them to be good communicators?
That's a good question. I think maybe the other part to that is I actually grew up with 3 sisters. So maybe
women, we're so good, right?
But I just think it's the basics around the dinner table, and making sure.
Would you have dinner at a table?
We do have dinner at a table.
See, there's a strategy.
We have dinner at a table. We sit down, make sure that my wife and I we don't no devices, and we talk, and we sometimes it's challenging, but you get there, and you hear the most amazing things. It's also being patient. I know, my eldest, he's a talker when you put him to bed. So you've got to be trying not to, run out of the room to do something else.
And what does family life look like in terms of work-life balance when you're a CEO and doing all of your career stuff?
Look, that's probably been that's a constant learning for me.
Yeah.
I think that in my previous role, there was a lot of international hours and international travel. And there's trade-offs. You make trade-offs every time. So I think I'm getting better at some of them, but also making sure that I'm valuing, what's important to keep me at my best.
And so how do you structure your day so that you sort of get, your family stuff in versus your work stuff in, or is that still work in progress too?
It's always work in progress.
A whip.
Yeah, no, it's always work. Well, it also changes for the role. But I travel quite a bit as, we've got customers all over Australia. So when I'm away from home, I'm all work.
Yeah.
And then when I'm home, I try to make sure that I find the right balance.
Dedicate the time to being at home. It's a really tough thing to get right though. Yeah. Particularly if you are, driven, by your career. I know that's definitely been a struggle in my home. It's back in the day, this is, back a few years ago, I would get up and I'm an early riser and I would get up and go to work at 4 a.m. Some nights I wouldn't get home till 8 o'clock at night. And then I'd sit on my laptop until 1 o'clock in the morning. I literally blinked and my child was 12 months.
Yeah.
And I was like, when the fuck did that happen?
Yeah.
I really had to check myself. I was like, Rachel, if you don't sort this out, and get this healthier, wherever it means, whether people around you, whether it means you need to time block better, whether you need to prioritize what's important to you right now, you will miss these critical years of your children's life if you don't change something. And that was something really powerful for me.
Yeah. And look, I agree. I think there's also a flip side to that, which is I imagine your kids are seeing, an amazing work ethic.
Yeah.
And I think there's other values that come through that, that are critical for the next generation.
Yeah, absolutely. I do definitely want to instill that in my children for sure, but also show them where the healthy boundaries lie.
Yeah.
And what other things are important in your life too, right?
Well, I think also that, in today where everything's so easily accessible, and particularly for kids.
It's fucking terrible.
I'll drink yours. But like for them to see hard work, to see grit, and see perseverance, that starts at home.
Yeah, absolutely. And I read a quote the other day, and it was about your business, or the business that you're leading, is a reflection of you as a person. If your business is chaos, you are chaos. If your business is calm, you are calm.
Yeah.
What do you think of that? Because that kind of triggered me a little bit, and so I thought I'm gonna raise this as a conversation starter, because I was like, is my business chaos? What do you think?
I think that's interesting. I probably have an experience that I often think about, which is perhaps aligned to that, which is I'm pretty. I think if you would speak to my colleagues, they'd say that I always ask for feedback. I love feedback. Like, I don't know everything. I'm new to the market, so I need feedback. So when I start a new business, we always, we do a lot of employee engagement, a lot of, when we start putting in place, training and development pathways. I want to make sure that there's someone in the organization who wants at least one person in the organization who wants my role, and everyone else in the exec team. And I remember the first time I did that, which was at the education business, the results came back from the engagement survey, and, it was a bunch of people who wanted, lead sales, a bunch of people who wanted lead marketing, lead product, lead finance, but no one wanted to be the CEO. And I was like, oh, it's a bit unfortunate. And as I did, I went around and started talking to the team, and one of our Salesforce expert or administrator, she turned to me and she said, Michael, why would anyone want your job? You make it look so hard.
Ooh.
And that's a piece of advice that I hold on to, because I need to make sure that I'm not making things look hard. I'm not too busy. And not available. And whilst I didn't think I was those things, the perception is that that's what it was. And so it's
so now you're just making visual care seem like a walk in the park.
Look, no, I think so what changes have I made from that? I think it's about that time in my life where I don't use the word busy. Because if I was to say in my role I'm busy, what I'm saying to everyone is that currently my priorities are more important than your priorities. And I don't know if my priorities are more important than someone else's priorities until I've heard what they've got to say. So I think it probably shut down some conversations before I had the chance to understand. So that's one thing. Another change I made was I made sure that I caught up with at least one team member a week. So I used to have in Australian, it was a coffee catch up. In the US, because I had a big team in the US, I used to call it a wine or wine, because the time difference was usually in the afternoon.
Yeah.
I just tried to make myself more available.
Yeah.
And also just to talk through what we do.
Yeah.
I think that's probably a learning for me, which is just being open and transparent.
Yes.
And I know it's a bit of a buzzword, but vulnerable.
Yeah, I love that. I love vulnerable, and I love how powerful it is to be able to remove a word from their vocabulary, even if it is busy, how simple that removal can take to get great outcomes for people, right? And to make sure that everyone knows that you're here. I know that when I started my business, and it's probably something that I've had to overcome throughout the course of the last 5 years, is that I always wanted to make sure that everybody seen that I was the hardest worker in the place, right? And that meant that I was likely the busiest, right? But as I've grown and evolved as a businesswoman, what I've realized is actually my role is not to be busy. It's actually to be the complete opposite. It's to be able to have my finger on the pulse by being available to those that are around me. And if my door's always closed and I'm stuck in meetings, I'm missing all those beautiful opportunities to be closer to my business, to find out what the real problems are, if there are problems, you know?
Yeah.
So I think as a CEO, we need to shift the narrative on how we actually propel the business forward. And that's not by being busy.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. Like, there's obviously there's a large responsibility and a lot of things to do, but it's about and there's always that old adage of working on the business first, in the business.
Yes. Oh, tell me about that.
Oh, it's the books.
What are your thoughts on it? Like bird's eye, everyone's like, you should be working in your business and get out of the weeds, and but sometimes you actually do need to get into the weeds, right, to solve a problem. But like,
absolutely, yeah.
How do you manage that time friction in terms of like having that bird's eye view, working on your business versus sometimes getting into the detail?
Yeah, well, if you speak to my wife, probably the answer is I don't manage it well. But
wifey's always right
I
too.
think just, and I don't like saying this because it used to annoy me when people said this to me, but I think just experience.
Yeah.
And knowing with experience, you kind of know when you need to be in the detail and when you don't. And I don't get that right all the time. But I'm also fortunate, there's just different periods, like you've been in your role, and for a long time, I've been in my role for 3 months. So I'm afforded the opportunity to spend a lot of time thinking and researching and learning.
Yes.
And that shifts. That's from your researching phase through to now you're doing and you're executing, and then you need to be more on the detail.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you've obviously gone into different industries, and there's a period of time when you shift into a new industry that you have to learn that industry, right?
Yeah.
Now, we've just had a COO start with us probably 4 months ago, and I was like, I don't need them to have NDIS experience. I need them to come with the skills, and the leadership qualities that I'm looking for in the individual. I can teach the NDIS. And what he said to me was like, Rachel, what on God's earth possessed you to get somebody with no NDIS experience? Like, this shit is really hard to learn, right? So how do you, when you're moving into a new role, such as the one that you're in now, and you're learning a whole new sector, and you've done it with footwear, with education, now NDIS, how long do you allow somebody that buffer of like figuring it out, like learning the sector, right?
That's a good question. I don't think I ever expect anyone to be an expert on it. Is probably the answer. I think there's a unique time that everyone has they bring to an organization that first 3 to 6 months where they haven't perhaps fully drunk the Kool-Aid yet. They're not indoctrinated into the way in which businesses do things, which is how they do it. It's part of our culture. But they still have that understanding of how it operates elsewhere. And that's a really unique perspective that people bring to organizations. So it's about balancing that in terms of thinking about recruitment and resourcing. Sometimes you need the industry experience. Sometimes you need someone who's got a different perspective. And it's getting the right people in the room and asking the right questions to moving things forward.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, because I think sometimes having a fresh perspective is actually exactly what you need. We could have somebody that's had 20 years experience, such as myself, in disability, and then obviously since the rollout of the NDIS, I know the NDIS back to front, inside out. I can tell you how to care for people because that's what I've done my entire career. But what I love is that those people that have come from other sectors bring a whole different lens. This is what we did at Fitness First or at Telstra and all these corporate companies, and how we can bring that into an NDIS business rather than getting stagnant in the fact that, this is how NDIS operates. I think we missed the opportunity for fresh ideas.
Yeah, well, look, I think there's always someone who's dealt with the problem or the issue before you.
Yeah.
And so it's, perhaps if I were on the cutting edge of technology or healthcare, maybe not the case, but these are issues that have been presented in different industries at different times around the world.
Yeah.
And so there's always somewhere you can look to. And I think that's what you get with the external, the fresh perspective.
Yeah, I love that so much. Now, you've also done this a number of times. So you've gone into companies and sort of started to lead the organization. What do you think and you've had, in all these instances, has the founder exited?
No.
Okay. All right. So sometimes you've worked alongside them. Sometimes they've exited and you've
Or they've
stayed
been on the board, they've stayed a shareholder.
Okay.
A broad mix of.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I imagine when that happens, this comes with a lot of change management, right? New faces, new people. I don't know. Do you bring in a whole bunch of new people? Walk me through that and sort of what are some of the key, I don't know, things or suggestions you have when it comes to change management? I know we talked about this over the phone.
Yeah. No, look, absolutely. It's all of the above. So I'll give you a little. When I started in the education business, someone who'd been in the organization for a very long time, I walked into the lunchroom, and this was also kind of reasonably recently to an investment by private equity. And I walked into the lunchroom, and I was referred to openly as the spy. And so
The spy. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Like not in a nice way, I imagine.
No, there's not a lot of ways that can be interpreted positively. It wasn't like a movie.
Yeah.
But
because I was thinking, what did I watch last night? What's Tom Cruise? He's always in those movies, that series?
Possible.
Mission Impossible. I mean, fuck, I'd love to be Mission Impossible.
No, it was not that context. It was kind of more perhaps, actually I won't go into that. But it's a reflection of the company's culture in terms of the acceptance of change.
Yes.
And understanding that. And businesses that have been doing things their way for a long time, change is scary. I've learned a lot of lessons. I enjoy, I guess you just look at my experience, but I enjoy change. I enjoy learning things. I've learnt that that's not everyone's cup of tea. So it's communication, and it's getting everyone an understanding. The first part is just getting everyone to understand if there is a problem or if there isn't a problem to solve. And a lot of that is getting people in the room, do process mapping exercises, and people go, oh, that sounds really boring. But to make sure that people everyone understands what everyone does. I do a lot of recruitment, and there's always a question for what does culture look like? And culture has so many different versions in people's eyes. For me, if everyone in my team comes to work and understands what they're doing and how it relates to where we're going, and they get that, and that's easy for them to understand, then that's a really positive culture, because they have the choice to come and invest their time, or they choose not to. And that's where I think you actually build the right foundation. So
when you go into businesses, is that the sort of one of the first things you do, is sort of map out the future vision for the business?
The first thing I do is I just spend a lot of time talking to people.
Okay.
Sorry, I shouldn't say talking, listening. So I try and spend as much time sitting and just listening, joining as many team meetings, joining customer meetings, and just asking people about what they do and also what they think they do, and what they'd like to do. Because that's when you start to, build trust, but also understand, where there's a disconnect between what people do and what they think they do, and how you can start to kind of close that. There's the old knowing, doing gap. I think most people know what to do, but the difference between doing that is kind of probably the difference between a good organization and a great organization. And I guess my job is to help provide the environment to close that gap.
Totally. So step one, when you go into a business, you sit down, you hear what's happening in the business or in its current state. What's step two?
So step two is, they're usually individual conversations. Step two is starting to get people together as a team and talk about these issues or things we need to start, roadblocks, and start to actually articulate them. And then after that, which I assume is going to come step three, then you start to think about, I think, why we're here. So looking at, if the business doesn't have a mission and a vision, what does that start to look like? And at that stage, hopefully I would have spoken with a lot of customers as well. And then again, that's a very collaborative, like, what do we do? Why are we here? What's our purpose? And then mission, vision, start to get around kind of planning longer term. And then how do you start to break that down into, what does the next 3 months look like? And that's all of a kind of top down, bottom up collaborative exercise. And it takes probably about 6 months from start to finish.
How far are you on that journey with visual care at the moment?
So we're at the mission vision. So I'm actually at the moment working through, we had a whole of company meeting last week where we were talking and getting some brainstorming. And I'm starting to take what is a lot of words, essentially kind of a wall of words, and starting to, group them into themes, and it will be an iterative process around getting to what we think the mission and vision should be.
I love that so much. We recently did a similar exercise. So we all got in it because we've been undergoing some change too. We've grown so much in the past, this is our 5th year in operation, and there's been a level of change. I always think that business goes in seasons, right? Kind of like our life. So it's like, the startup season, then the toddler season, and now we're like a fully fledged business. That's how I feel. I feel like we're a mature business now. So we all jumped in a room with all of our key stakeholders, and we say, who do we want to be when we grow up?
Yeah.
So where are we going? What's our big, hairy, audacious goal? And then if that's our big, hairy, audacious goal, what does our 5, 3, and 1 year plan need to look like to get us there? And if our BHAG, I always say, doesn't make you feel literally sick to your stomach and make you want to vomit, it's not big enough, So you work that out. What are our values? Are we still living and breathing them? What's our mission? Why are we here? And then once you've got everybody in the room co-creating that, then everyone feels like they're on that journey.
Yeah.
Then we took it one step further and we had like a town hall meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Where we presented to the organization about where we're going. I didn't even realize the value of that until after I had done it.
Yeah.
And then everyone was like, wow, it was so nice to hear it from you, understand where we're going, what that means in terms of opportunities and career pathways and all of these amazing questions that come up. I didn't even realize by conducting that 30-minute session within my business, what impact that had until after the fact. I'm so glad that we did it.
And so when did you do that?
The town hall?
Yeah,
Yes, recently.
Yeah.
Just 3-4 weeks ago, probably.
So what's your plan for reinforcing it?
Oh, absolutely. So now we've committed, we took feedback on the session from the day, and then we get into a quarterly review to make sure that, so we've taken our 1 year, we've bite-sized them into 90-day, sort of actions, and then everyone has a swim lane, and so there's obviously somebody who's responsible for seeing that through, et cetera, et cetera. And then every 3 months we go back to the business and we let them know where we're at, what changes have happened, are we still on track to meet our 1 year objectives, what opportunities have come from that, and, all of the other, amazing things. Because I think often in business is that we get to the end point and we look back and we forget to, acknowledge where we're going along the way.
Yeah.
I actually think it's a really good opportunity to be able to sniff the roses in the meantime, so to enjoy the journey, because often we're just always like, okay, where are we going? Where are we going? Where are we going? And we don't stop and smell the roses.
Yeah.
So.
No, look, you've sounds like you've, I could learn from you and things that playbook, but that sounds like something I'm in the process of doing.
Oh, amazing.
And I like to, I think in my last role, I painted the wall with our vision and our annual goals in the foyer, so people couldn't, they saw it every day.
Right.
And that's the part that when I was talking about communication before, I probably didn't realize the power, to your point, of but then the need to continually reinforce that, because you get, to use a word I don't like, but you get busy, there's distracting. Yeah, there's customers, and so
using that word anymore.
No, we're not using it. But there's a lot of distractions.
Yeah.
And so, it's our job to stay the course.
Absolutely. And I think as a leadership team even is that typically what happens is you set these 90-day objectives and say, okay, this is what we've agreed collectively that we're working on, understanding that it's not BAU, it's not business as usual, right? It is project-based stuff. It's going to push the needle forward and make a real significant change, right?
Yeah.
But then we get back into the business and then we're putting out fires day to day, or something else is coming across the table like, oh, we uncover this, we take, we've got to solve this problem. So we flip that rock and there's all this other shit that comes with it, and then all of a sudden you've got 3 other things on it. I think what's been really helpful in that 90 days. So now you're doing business as usual, your 3 projects that you're working on, you've also uncovered there's 3 other issues that you have to resolve, and now that's added to you. But what's been really helpful in our business is we've been able to go back and say, okay, let's car park that.
Yeah.
Let's put that in yes, this is something we want to work on in the next sort of 12 months, or let's do it in our next 90-day sprint, but we've committed as a business is that this is what we're working from. Because what we've also found is that there's also codependencies, right? So when you uncover something and you're like, oh, I want to solve this today, it means you have to pull 3 or 4 other people in to help you solve the problem, which takes them away from those things, and you haven't even asked for that commitment from them.
Yes. No, very true. So I'm curious if I'm allowed to keep asking questions.
Yes.
So you said before you've established an advisory board.
Yes.
How often will you meet as a group?
Okay, so this has only been newly established for me, so we're yet to have our first meeting. So this came from a challenge that I was having as a business owner. I have a bunch of coaches and mentors that I have in my world, which I'm so grateful for, and I'm very sort of passionate about getting people around you to help you succeed in any way. And also I don't suggest that I know everything. I have a lot of gaps, so I plug them with amazing people around me. Oh, Jesus, Michael, lucky that was empty.
I was a little bit on the
No, it's fine. So I set up an advisory board. The plan is to meet quarterly.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still looking for 2 other people to join the advisory board. It's a paid role. We meet quarterly. We'll have all the key metrics for them. We'll give that to them a week out so that they can review all of that. And then we'll jump in the room and then I'll just say, these are the problems that I want to solve, essentially. So I can give you feedback after the first one, but I'm really hoping that I'll have a whole bunch of experts with their relevant discipline that can help me make really sound decisions in any sort of challenges I'm having in the business.
Excellent. The reason I ask is
Yeah.
like a lot of people ask me about working with private equity.
Yes.
And private equity, particularly in Australia, has a monthly board meeting cadence. And everyone's like, that's a lot. Like, that's a lot of reporting. That's a lot of, but it keeps you focused, because if I kind of achieved what I said I'd want to achieve in 1 month, then I should really take a long, hard look at what I'm doing.
Yes.
I think, as far as asking about the frequency, 3 months is a long time. You can get a bit lost in 3 months. 1 month really keeps you on track.
Oh yeah, I can imagine the accountability that would come from a 1 month.
And that helps with focus.
Okay.
And so anyway, that'd be my 2 cents.
That's feedback, very welcomed feedback. I'll look at the meeting cadence and see whether we should push it to monthly. I've got 4 entities that I'm part of. So
that could be a bit of a challenge.
So maybe I'll do the monthly, but like separate, do 1 a month.
But also thinking about in terms of if you got 4, how you manage those 4 entities, because a month is a long time.
A month is a long time. Yeah, actually a quarter is a long time. A month feels like it's like, oh, Jesus, where did that time go?
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And so talking about that and all the reporting, and we'll probably circle back to visual care here, is that I've been setting up dashboards in my business recently, and I'm very passionate about getting the right data to make informed decisions and sort of leveraging AI and Power BI and all of those cool things to get really cool data so that we don't have to wait for our relevant, executive level role, whether it be a CFO or whatever, to pull the data from the relevant system and then give a monthly report that I can have that data live, in front of me every day and across all different functions, whether it be finance, operations, people, etc. So what are your thoughts? How your technology being visual care, obviously pulling that data from a system, how are you leveraging AI? How are you leading into robotics? What's your tech stack at the moment? Give us all the techie information.
You've partnered with the right business if you're after information. So that's unless you have some feedback for me. Look, reporting, I guess my background, I'm very analytical, very comfortable with a lot of information, which is both beneficial. I'd say for maybe some of my team might say it's a bit frustrating from time to time because I do and jump into the detail. So a couple of questions there in terms of dashboards. Like they're useful, but you also have to involve and you have to understand what the question is, and it helps if you've got your broader planning and your quarter planning. What are you trying to measure? And something I always ask people, I guess my role, people ask me for approval for things. I guess in some cases I have to give it. I'm not a fan of giving approval. I'm always like, well, what does success look like? Because dashboards are historical. Yes, they might be real time, but they're still what has happened. But I think it's always important to complement that, and particularly if you think about your quarterly cadence with the organization, is how it's an opportunity to review what happened, but also what does success look like. And if you've met it, what's the learning? If you haven't, equally, what's the learning? In terms of visual care, AI, robotics, look, I think there's a lot of opportunity for automation in order to help provide a simple solution. One of those is definitely around rostering and scheduling. And I find it interesting within organizations, and you may correct me here, but you've got, a scheduler or rosterer whose role is to make sure there's shift fulfillment. The right person is being seen by the right carer with the right needs, like that. If you think about I'd say it, but like KPIs, it would be probably 100% shift fulfillment. Is that right?
Oh yeah, there's so many like different elements. Obviously, participant choice and control. Obviously, the risk around have they got the skills, qualifications, and training. Then there's obviously the financial.
Yeah, But I'm curious, do your schedulers or rosters take into account the financial, or are they more focused on making sure that someone with the right experience and is being seen by?
Step one is always to get the right staff in the right shift, the right body in the right shift to be able to serve our people. It's always people over profit for us as a key indicator. But then on top of that, if we are spending, which is why I love dashboards, because I don't like waiting for a month to get those metrics. If we've got, a certain SIL home, because that's predominantly our service delivery, that, had an agency spend that the trend is 10% over budget for this particular week, we can have that conversation in real time rather than wait for the monthly report and say, like, what are the current challenges in this particular service and why are we overutilizing, or why are we having so many shads breaches or paying excess overtime, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. So I think you've in that you've kind of identified what I think is a major opportunity, which is, you've got schedule, the rosterers are responsible for making sure that it's filled. And then there's a bit of a downstream or down process impact, which is, well, what's the cost of that? It's a fixed price market. And we want to make sure that we are, delivering and the business is growing and there's, enough left over to invest. I think there's an opportunity to bring those two activities together and have some, automation, be it AI, to improve how we think about that. I think also, as you would know better than I would, there's a lot of compliance. I would like to.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I would like
so easy to
do
navigate.
a simple audit of how often do you put someone's name in a system or on a form. What would your guess be?
How many times?
Yeah.
Oh, if I had to guess, like over a day or over a year, or.
You can define the timeline.
Okay, let's say you would enter in a participant's name maybe 5 times a day.
5 times a day. So. Yeah. Like that's an opportunity. Like
absolutely.
That should be in terms of systems, and they're things that I think we should be, visual care and the market should be looking at as improving, because why should we be entering in the same name 5 times a day?
100%.
Because also, like, we are humans and there is human error, and at some point you're going to get the name wrong. So how can we remove that?
Yeah, absolutely.
So they're the things that we're starting to think about. I'm starting to think about very early days, but I think our role is to simplify, as I started. So,
totally.
Someone's putting a participant or a carer's name in a system 5 times. There's an opportunity.
Absolutely. I also think that, as you mentioned, we're in a price capped market, right? So we need to get, we need to find better efficiencies in the way that we run a business in order to, make a profit at the end of this, because, if you've seen the disability cost worker model, it's not a pretty thing to look at.
Yeah, and it's actually interesting about that. So I wouldn't say I'm an expert, but I do understand it. And I think that, I think broadly the public probably aren't aware that exists.
I don't think so. They think that there's a big NDIS truck of cash waiting outside my office, just bathing in dollar bills all day,
Yeah, which is really unfortunate because
Yeah.
I'm very new to the market, but there's so much amazing work that people are doing.
Absolutely.
So many amazing stories, and it is. I think it's really unfortunate that they're not reflected in the headlines.
Yeah, totally. And I think that there's such a amazing opportunity for our technology, to work alongside us so that as a business and as a frontline service offerings, a service-based business, we can go back to doing what we do and spend most of our time providing amazing experiences for our customers. And then we can use our technology to support us through that journey and also refine the way that we do things. I think a couple of challenges that most of the NDIS, now I do coaching and mentoring with NDIS business owners, so I know a bit of their challenges, and I'm sure that you would know some of their challenges yourself, but like the quality of note writing or incident reports, and making sure that there's a flow to make those happen. Like you said, building out forms inside a system. For example, is there something in AI or some sort of integration or plug that can be put in so that when somebody is note taking, whether it be they're using a sort of an audio recorder, but it leverages AI to sort of just write it out for them so that it's like still using what they're saying, but it helps them assist like a note assistant almost, because otherwise you just get these shitty notes, from support worker, and may or may not be because their communication skills or their writing abilities or whatever. It doesn't mean that they've provided a really shitty experience on the front line. It just means that maybe they're not a great report writer.
Yeah, or English may not be their first language.
Exactly.
No, absolutely. I think, look, but I also think it's our role when I was referring to simplify, like there are lots of different ways to if you look at all the different platform and the offering in the market, there's lots of different ways to roster. There should probably only be one way to roster in terms of, so we need to make sure that our tools are supporting the workflows of our customers, our providers like yourself, to simplify that process, and then we can start to add the value around the additional tools. There's some parts there that it would be great if all of the software providers got together and said, hey, this is how we're going to do it in a way that's consistent. We're not there yet as a market, but I hope that we can get there.
I love that collaborative effort.
Yeah, like a statement of claim, it should probably look the same from every provider.
You heard it here first, Michael Graves.
Yeah.
We'll put that out right on your socials. And so since joining Visual Care, I'm sure that you're talking to customers and you're learning about their experience. What are you hearing is the biggest challenge, either with the NDIS space or with technology that providers are currently facing in the market right now?
The biggest challenge, I think probably the biggest challenge that I'm hearing from providers is around it's becoming increasingly competitive in terms of participants and carers. And so that onboarding, support, HR kind of functionality, which you referred to it in our platform, is becoming increasingly more important. The experience that people have around that to make sure that they maintain the same great relationship with the provider.
Amazing. And
is that what you like? I'm curious. How about you? You're the industry.
Oh my God, where do we start? I mean, in terms of technology, it would be great for providers to have an end-to-end solution. Typically, we have to have multiple systems. So it would either have an end-to-end solution or have amazing, incredible API integrations so that they all talk to one another. So there's always one source of truth, whether it be people, clients, etc. So that's probably one of the feedbacks in terms of technology. The biggest thing that I hear in terms of challenges in the NDIS space from providers is, how do we make any money in this space? And I really love finding those 1% shifts in businesses to try and help them improve the bottom line. Because whilst we are here to do amazing work and we're purpose-led and we want to have great impact, we still want to be able to have a successful commercial business as well, business model. So I think that that's something that is a big challenge in our sector at the moment. And then also similarly, like you said, is it's becoming increasingly difficult to get referrals. And I think one of the first things that I work with providers is, why would they want to buy from you? You know, similarly to, I'm sure, the same conversation that you would have is like, why would they use visual care?
Yeah.
So it's really finding what your, unique selling proposition is as a business and who you can really serve. And then you can get really refined about the market that you want to tap.
I'm curious. So I have a question for you, because your first point was around profit, and when you speak with, through your coaching and your courses, what's the language that they use? Is it profit, or is it they want a good earnings, they want to be rewarded? Like, what's the wording that they use?
Everybody that I always talk to starts with, I'm not in this for money.
Yeah.
Like it's a dirty thing, right? Like, I'm not in this to make money. I'm like, well, why the fuck are you in business then? Like, I mean that in the nicest possible way, is that this is truly my life's purpose, is to serve the disabled community. And I love what we do. And I know that the service and the customer experience that we create is exceptional, right? But to think that I'm going to run a commercial business and not expect to make a profit at the end of the day is actual insanity, and I still have a family to take care of, and I want to be paid what I believe I'm, worth, as I also believe my staff should be rewarded and remunerated accordingly,
Yes.
So how do we create a great business model and also, serve our community at the same time? They can align beautifully. In terms of the terminology that people use, it's typically, how do we make money and how do we make a profit? Yeah. But also them understanding what their GP needs to be, what their net profit needs to be, and building some financial acumen into individuals, because a lot of people in our sector are doing beautiful, amazing work and they lack business acumen. How do we build that up and set a standard?
Yeah, well, that comes down to our education.
Yes, exactly.
Financial literacy and the like. Yep.
Exactly. And like you said, there's a lot of really smart people overcomplicating it to make themselves sound smarter. How do we take all of this amazing knowledge, put it into simple layman's terms, and then give it back to our sector and have this really collaborative approach about just sharing? This is what's worked for me. Don't make the same mistakes as me. Here it all is, because if we truly want to see a better sector and better outcomes for people living with a disability, then why would we keep that close to our heart? Why would we guard that?
Yeah, it's interesting. I had a similar experience in education. I think education and broadly healthcare, including NDIS, it attracts probably more mission driven people. So the why is clear, which is great, but you do find there's that perception of a competing interest between the financial outcome and either the educational outcome or the healthcare outcome there's a responsibility, I think, that we have to help find the right language to have that conversation. Because profit's a bit of a dirty word. Having a sales team is sales sometimes.
Yeah, everyone's sales ick.
Yeah, and that's really unfortunate. We all sell. I'm here selling.
Absolutely.
And I should be one of our biggest champions with respect to selling.
Totally. And I also think that sales has often been this ick word in our sector too. But if you genuinely have somebody who has a problem, like, I need a home and I need really great support around me, and you've got an amazing solution for them, you're actually doing that person a disservice by not connecting those two to that person. And that is what sales is, in its authentic state.
Are you looking for a sales job?
You got one guy? So I think that, it's actually, if we shift the narrative, if you genuinely have a great service for somebody and it's going to solve their problem, then if you don't do sales, it's a disservice.
Yeah.
That's my opinion anyway. If you had a magic wand and you could, I don't know, transform either the NDIS sector or your current tech solution, actually give me both, what would you do?
Oh, look, I'm still very much not experienced enough to have a comment on the NDIS sector of what I'd change. But look, I think I probably touched on this before. I think the obvious thing there is the perception of those outside. I think, was there 5.5 million Australians living with a disability. It's we've got a population of 26 million. So we should be celebrating the people who are giving their life to supporting and building and making this a successful venture for everyone, and we're not. So I think that would be something which I think is just unfortunate, and I think I'd get a bit frustrated if I'd been in the market for a long time and still seeing the general negativity in the headlines.
It is a really...
How do you feel about that? You'd see the headlines.
Look, I used to be so proud when I would say, what do you do for a living? And I say, I work with people with disabilities. And people would go, oh, that's so amazing. That's so good. You know, how did you get into that? Thank God there's people like you on this earth, blah, 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 blah. That's the old thing I used to get. Now, if I say I work in the NDIS, because that's the space that I work in, like the looks that I get is like, ugh, oh, did you see what happened on the news the other day? Oh, how many people are rorting that scheme? Oh, fucking taxpayers' money. And I just get this whole thing, the whole narrative shift. Narrative shift? Is that the right word? Yeah, okay, whatever. The whole shift, like this whole narrative shift has happened with the way that it's perceived, even though I'm doing exactly the same work, that because it's under the NDIS and because it's, about sustainability scheme and it's taxpayers' money and, all this insurance scheme, it's changed, the way that people perceive it. And I think that mainstream media obviously needs to sell news. That's their role. And so they're not selling light, fluffy, amazing stories because that doesn't sell news. So what they are sharing is, the small percentage of our sector doing really shitty things. And there's really small percentages of every sector doing shitty things. I mean, there was
Absolutely,
there's just shitty people everywhere.
So how, I'm curious, what are your thoughts on shifting that narrative?
Oh, look, I try and give it as least airtime as I can. This is probably enough for it because I don't want to be part of the problem. Yep. What I do actually want to start doing is sharing amazing stories, and such as this podcast, which is one of the reasons why we started it, is how do we shift the narrative, and how do we start sharing amazing stories? How do we start actually sharing the challenges and the real life scenarios of businesses and participants that are either a consumer, a person with lived experience, because they have challenges under the NDIS as well, whether it be funding limitations or whatever, but also what are the great outcomes that they're receiving since the rollout. It's changed people's lives.
Yes.
And then what are all the amazing things that providers are doing? And so I really want to start sharing that. And also what are the constraints that we have to work in so that people don't just think that there's this big truck of cash and that we're all rorting the scheme, that, we're just trying to do really great work.
Yeah, no, I know. I've had similar feedback since I started in this role. So, yeah, I'm all for changing the narrative.
Awesome.
Mainly just doing that by getting on with it. And I think that Visual Care and other platforms like that can simplify and ensure that the investment is going into the people who are doing the work. And with time, I'm confident that will be enough.
Perfect. And so Visual Care is the leading platform for
absolutely
NDIS operators. First choice, yes. It's definitely, you wouldn't be here if I didn't think it was the first choice. And so speaking about, Visual Care in 12 months' time, do we have that scenario yet under your leadership, or it's still something you're working out?
You probably one of the most obvious changes perhaps is that we will be contributing more to the market in terms of I think there's an opportunity for us to take a thought leadership position or to contribute towards that with respect to interpretation of the changes, interpretation of how things can work, how we can help meet and support our customers. We do a lot of it, but we're not very good at telling people that we do it.
I love that.
And helping, hopefully, in terms of supporting that role. That's probably the biggest change. I think that there are, for all of our providers and all the market, there are 2 or 3 clear jobs to be done that we can support our customers on. And whilst, yes, an end-to-end solution is beneficial, I want to make sure that we are really meeting the needs of our customers in those 2 or 3 jobs. What are the 2 or 3 things that people come to us or they go, hey, I can do this better. Okay, I need help with this. What is that? And what's the language that our customers are using so we can meet them where they are?
I love that so much. I think we would have to do a version 2 of this podcast maybe in 12 months' time and see, what's happened in the next 12 months and whether you've been able to achieve that, and if how amazing, and then what's challenges you faced along the way as well.
Yeah, sounds great. Well, if you make in the afternoon, then it'll be a margarita, double espresso. So.
Okay. All right. Perfect. Michael, is there anything else that you want to share with our audience? Leave them with a key takeaway or anything else?
No, I think I've shared probably enough or maybe too much, but I've really enjoyed this experience. Thank you.
It's been an incredible conversation. Thank you for joining us today.